RiffTheWorld, and I am actually at home right now, getting ready for my daughter's high school graduation. Just want to see how this frames in. So I decided to make a brief video. Sorry, the kitchen is an absolute mess. I am cooking for the graduation party, and she is having a lot of people there. So I'm going to be basically showing you guys what I do when I make pulled pork for a crowd. So I am actually going to be cooking and smoking 50 pounds of pulled pork, basically pork butt, the butt roast or whatever. So I just want to make sure that we are well framed here so that we can see what's going on. Boom, boom. That's good. Let's just take a look. The fun of the gun run pack. Normally, I'm not just flat out on this side of it. Normally, I'm wearing the thing, and there we go. Normally, I'm wearing the son of a gun. Perfect. And filming everybody else. But today, I'm doing something a little different, and it's fun. It's 88 degrees in my house right now. Just turned the AC on, but closed the doors so there'd be some quiet. But I'm going to show you what I do when I make my pulled pork. So there's a couple components to pulled pork. Number one is the type of meat that you're going to get. I got a butt roast, a bone-in butt. Now I bought standard size for these things. They're about 8 pounds for an 8-pound pork roast like that, bone-in. What I've done, just because I've got some limited space in the smoker and I've got to try to fit a lot of it in and jockey it in just right, was I did almost the unthinkable in barbecue and in smoking. I actually cut the roasts in half. Now the bone only goes through 50% of the roast, okay? So I cut the roast in half. There's a side with the bone, side without the bone. And when you're marinating this, especially if you're doing a large group, it does pay to cut the roast in half, and it gives you a few different options. Like you can soak it, brine it in Tupperware or a container like that. Otherwise, what I always like to use, I just like to use gallon-sized bags because you can fit a lot of them really easily into the fridge. Extremely, extremely convenient. But what's great about doing pulled pork, super forgiving cut of meat. Absolute forgiving. You can mess up the temperature. You can screw up how long you leave it in there. And it's a super, super forgiving type of meat. So if you're thinking about getting into smoking meats, getting into maybe brisket or ribs or whatever, I would start with the pulled pork. It's a very easy first step. And that's why it makes such an easy thing to do for a large crowd. The other reason it's easy to do for a large crowd, $1.88 a pound. So I got 50 pounds of this stuff. I'm looking at $100 in meat to serve close to 200 sandwiches. So it's super, super affordable for a situation like that. So we have got our 50 pounds. If you see behind me, I've got it all cut up and distributed out. The first thing you're going to want to do before you start any of this, you've picked your meat, you've trimmed it. If there's too much fat on it, you only want to leave about 1/8 an inch of the fat. Not all the fat will melt and penetrate the meat. A lot of people think it will. That's a bit of a myth. So you want to trim them down so you got about 1/8 of an inch of fat on top of it. And then there's an argument whether you cook with the fat side down or the fat side up. Honest to God, it doesn't make a difference whatsoever. Now keep in mind, I'm actually filming this at home, so I'll have people coming and going, walking through and stuff like that. I've got kids, so this is going to be, like I said, it's kind of off the cuff. First thing you want to do, so you've taken and you have trimmed the pork down. If you had to divide it up like I did, you divide it up. The reason that there is a positive to that is more division equals more surface area, equals more area for spices to soak in, more of the bark, as it's called, and more of the smoke ring, which is where the hickory is we're going to be using, actually penetrates the meat itself. So there's a plus to doing that. The downside is you do lose a little bit of moisture, but when you're making this damn much, some of the moisture you lose to shrinking when you smoke it, it's not going to be that significant. So you've got your meat, you've got it all figured out like that, cut, trimmed, whatever. First thing you have to do is make a rub. The reason you want to make the rub first is that's going to actually be the brine, the salt portion of the brine when you brine it or marinate the meat overnight. So I'm making a simple rub that'll handle 50 pounds of pulled pork. So in this thing, few basic ingredients. You probably have most of these things around the house. So for 50 pounds, we're using 2.5 cups of white sugar, just cane sugar, granulated sugar, like that. And then we're using 2.5 cups, so this is even, 2.5 cups white sugar, 2.5 cups brown sugar. You can use light brown, you can use dark brown. I am actually using a mix of half and half, light and dark. I like the dark because it's got a little bit more molasses. The white tends to break up a little easier. And you're just going to dump them in your bowl. You're going to mix them together and just kind of start to incorporate this. Because keep in mind, it's going to be a rub. It's going to be essentially a granular powder that you're putting on the outside of your pork, and you're rubbing it into there. But it's also going to be your secret ingredient in your brine. The brine is essentially what brine is. It's a salt liquid. It's a salt water. And that'll help penetrate the meat, soak in overnight into the meat, make the meat really juicy, and reduce some of the shrink when you smoke it. When you smoke pork, you can usually estimate about a 30% overall size shrink to the pork. So that means 30% of the 50 pounds is going to shrink down a little bit. Now you can offset that by smoking them in a aluminum pan. You can offset some of that by going slow and low with the temp. And you can also offset that by doing a, like the Texas crutch is what they call it. It's where you take halfway through it and you wrap your pork in foil, bring up the heat and finish it off that way so you don't lose as much moisture. We're not going to do the crutch. We're going to go ahead and smoke this legit style. So the other way to obviously keep that in there is to do a brine. So we're going to be doing a combo of brining, and we're going to be doing a combo of also adding smoking it in an aluminum foil pan. Hey Rose, how you doing? It's my daughter Rose Tyler behind us. So we've mixed the two sugars together pretty well. Next ingredient that's going to go into this thing, 12 tablespoons of kosher salt. So this is the flake style salt. It's not your Morton's iodized, but this is a kosher flake style sea salt. It's a little bit more coarse. It's a little bit more, hold on 1 second. Let's get the water going. Rose, did you want water, honey? Here, hold on 1 second. Let's get you some water. Let's get you a clean glass. Okay. All right, here you go. Ready? Excited? Yeah, it's coming from the... Normally we cover up the water section of the refrigerator because she will go ahead and help herself, and we will have water absolutely everywhere as she has figured out the child lock on the thing. So anyway, we've got 2.5 cups of brown sugar, 2.5 cups of white sugar, and we're doing 12 tablespoons of the flake style kosher sea salt. So we're just going to add that in. We're going to whisk it to incorporate it together. We want this to be pretty well mixed in so that the spices and the salt and the sweet is all evenly distributed throughout our rub. Okay? So once we have mixed that, relatively thoroughly, we're going to go ahead and start adding our spices. We've got our sweet, we've got our salt. Next thing that's going to go into this thing is 12 tablespoons of paprika. You can use sweet paprika, you can use Hungarian paprika, which is a little bit more of a bold flavor. You can use a smoked paprika, but that's not necessary because we're going to be getting all the smoke that we need from the hickory chips in the wood smoker. So we are going to just go ahead and dump that entire thing right in there. Hey, kiddo. All right. You see what I'm making? I'm making pulled pork. All right, so we're going to go ahead and work that through. The reason I like to use a whisk, quite frankly, is the reason you use a whisk. It incorporates everything really nicely, and you can kind of mash down on it. It makes it easier to mix when you're doing a large amount of bulk spices. Oh, you can smell the paprika, too. It smells amazing. This is going to be wonderful. Excellent. So we got that. We've got that well mixed together. Okay, so we've got our salt. We've got our sweets. We've got the pungent of the paprika. We're going to go ahead and actually add next onion powder. We're going to use a full 6 tablespoons of onion powder in here. Now we'll be using some onions, fresh onions, when we cook the brisket or smoke the brisket as well. But the onion powder is going to do a couple things. It's going to soak up some of the moisture from the brown sugar, helping our rub be a little bit more effective. And it's a concentrated it's a concentrated flavor. It's going to impart that flavor into the brine. It's going to impart that flavor into the pork. It's going to be fantastic. All right, so we've got a good mix there. So we had 6 tablespoons onion powder. Now we've got 6 tablespoons of garlic powder. And we're doing this for the exact same reason. Now you can use dry granulated garlic. Don't use fresh garlic. Don't use moist garlic because we are making a dry rub for the pork itself. But you want to use either a granulated garlic or a garlic powder. And the one I use is from this little Italian market called Briano's in Burnsville, Minnesota. They have a great garlic powder that's from Italy. It's real pungent, real strong. Not overpowering though. It's just got a really good garlic flavor. All right. We're going to add to this now our pepper, our black pepper. So this is 12 tablespoons of black pepper. Now you can use coarsely ground, you can use finely ground. That's not really going to matter. Obviously, it's up to your preference. If you use a finer ground, it's going to coat the meat more evenly, and you'll get a little bit more pepper taste in every bite of bark, which is what I prefer. But again, a lot of this is, this is open to your own interpretation. It's open to your own enjoyment. Also, one of the things with the black pepper, you kick up a lot of dust when you escape. And so you sneeze. That's pretty exciting stuff, huh? Finally, the recipe I use that I created, basically, calls for 6 dashes of cayenne. Now, this is entirely subjective. If you don't like any spice, use no cayenne. If you like a lot of spice, use a lot of cayenne. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, 6 dashes of cayenne pepper. We'll mix that all in together and meld these spices. Make sure everything's incorporated nicely together, because you don't want to take a bite and get all the whole dash of cayenne. You don't want to take a bite and get all the garlic. You don't want to take a bite of your pork and get all onion or all paprika. You want to get a nice blend, a nice mix of all, there we go, of all the spices. Now some of it will bunch up a little bit because of the moisture of the brown sugar. Don't worry about it. It's totally fine. So when you're done, you've got yourself a huge bowl of barbecue rub. Now if you don't use this all, okay? If you don't use it all, save yourself an old pasta sauce jar, Tupperware container, or something like that. This stuff will keep damn near indefinitely in the cupboard, and that is why we specifically said, hey, don't use fresh garlic, don't use moist garlic. All right, so we have made ourselves this fantastic barbecue rub. So the next thing we need to do is we need to brine the pork. Now the brine is super simple. We're using apple juice. Ideally you use apple cider. For this amount of people, I use apple juice. And I want to use a nice apple cider vinegar. That's where acid's going to come from. The acid will help break down some of the proteins in the pork, making it even that much more tender. So it'll get to work essentially almost cooking the pork a little bit. It's the same way a ceviche works, where it cooks the fish in the citric acid. Well, the vinegar, the apple cider vinegar, and if you're looking for an apple cider vinegar, get something like Heinz, or get the one with the mother in it, which is just amazing. That's the stuff people drink. Don't get a store brand that's white vinegar with apple cider flavoring. You got to be real careful. Just make sure the first ingredient there is apple cider. You distill from the juice of apples. Hey, kiddo. All right, so we are going to go ahead and we're going to brine. Now keep in mind, this would be a 4-pound piece of, a half of an 8-pound roast. We're going to use about 1/8 a cup. Well, a full 1/8 cup. This I'm using a 1/4 cup, so you want to go about half on your 1/4 cup of the rub. Okay, we're going to start off with that. All right? And that's where our salt and our sweet and the brine is going to come from. Now we're going to use a full 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar for that 4 pounds. So we've got, what do we have so far? We have 1/8 a cup of the rub, a 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar, and then we are going to cover this in apple juice. Apple juice to cover. right to just about cover. You want to get all the meat in there. And that's it. So we have got our rub that we made. Again, for the rub, it's 2.5 cups white sugar, 2.5 cups brown sugar, 12 tablespoons kosher flake salt, 12 tablespoons paprika. You're going to use 6 tablespoons of onion powder, 6 tablespoons of garlic powder. You're going to use 6 tablespoons of ground black pepper, 6 or more or less dashes of cayenne. You're going to put that on 1/8 a cup. You're going to put in 1/4 cup of vinegar, and you're going to top it off with apple juice. The last step, sorry, that's the kids' sippy cups. The last step, I think I'd be better planned if I was going to do this, is cover the son of a gun, and you're going to let this thing marinate, and you're going to let it brine for a minimum of 8 hours. You can go 24 hours, it's going to be better and better and better and better. And you want to marinate it in the fridge. You want to brine it in the refrigerator. This is perishable. Now, when I'm doing 50 pounds of this stuff and I only have a fridge that size, I'm going to take a cooler. I'm going to put these into the cooler, take a large bag of ice, put it over there. That's how I'm going to keep it cool. That's how I'm going to brine it. Now, the same goes with the bag. Bag's real easy. Same situation. We're going to take, again, 1/8 a cup of the 1/8 a cup of the rub, get it in there. By the way, I like brining and marinating in bags because you can move it around, you can make sure everything's fully covered, and usually it ends up not taking as much because you can get more surface area going. We've got 1/4 cup apple cider vinegar. We're going to fill that bad boy with apple juice. I tell you, the 1 gallon Ziploc bags are an absolute godsend to anyone who likes cooking. There we go. Apple juice to cover. We'll zip it up. It becomes a lot more space effective in the refrigerator. Ends up taking less of the apple juice or apple cider. There we go. And gets really good full contact with the meat. Again, we're going to brine this 8 to 12 hours. Right now it is Central Time 5:12. So we're going to kick this into the smoker tomorrow morning, probably about 10 a.m. Central Time. We're retaining the rest of the rub. Obviously it's called rub for a reason. I'm going to show you what we're going to do with that tomorrow morning. Also going to show you what we're doing with the hickory smoke, the hickory smoke chips. You can use chunk chips, pellets. Don't use liquid smoke if you can avoid it at all costs. But I'm going to show you how that works. And we're going to use, I've got both a coal and an electric smoker. We're going to use the electric smoker just for convenience. When I'm doing this kind of amount and I'm doing it for other people, I like to have the accurate temperature sensor controls. But that's it, you guys. This is phase 1 of making, and I got a little bit more work to do. The puppy thinks that's not for you. Stormageddon, Dark Lord of All, get down. Her name's Stormy. It's short for Stormageddon, Dark Lord of All. That's the dog's name. All right, so I got a lot more work to do here. I'm not going to bore you guys with that on camera. But definitely, if you have any questions, you want to contribute anything to the thread, leave a comment on the video. And I will check in with you guys again live tomorrow, Saturday, at probably about 10 a.m., give or take, Central Time. Other than that, my name is Jeremy. That's Riff from RiffTheWorld. If you have not yet followed my channel here on Twitch, it is so easy. All you do is click the little heart or click the follow button, and boom, you're a follower. It costs you nothing. If you'd like to subscribe, you can do so by just simply subscribing at the top of the page or in the info section if you're using the app on your phone. Otherwise, if you have got Amazon Prime, you can actually subscribe for free. You simply attach your Amazon to your Twitch, and it allows you to go ahead and subscribe. I'm doing a big push for subscribers. That's my big goal for myself. Through here to the end of the month of June, I'm aiming for 20 subscribers. I'm a newer streamer, just started the middle of January. If you like what you see, if you like the IRL stuff I do, let me know. Subscribe. Everything that I get to do is funded by subscribers and donations.